One of the things I loved about England when I was growing up, and I loved a few things just to annoy everybody, although a liking for the Sex Pistols could do the trick on its very own, was the way our people who were supposedly so dominant were also so inactive in terms of determining who they actually were. They were full of what I later learned Arnold had called indifferentism, tons of sincerity without any action. I've quoted Isaiah Berlin's notion of negative freedom. We could also apply another phrase to describe the condition, Alex Comfort's now forgotten notion of irresponsible obedience. Another slant on the English would see their dim view of class action to be a good thing, a guarantee of the kind of individualism that makes for eccentrics and self-excluders. But silent obedience of the English working class sort is more often antithetical to eccentricity. It usually comes out as a completely individual conviction that difference is suspect and resistance means trouble. The common or garden English today don't say, what can be done? They say, what difference does it make? When I became a teenager, my sense of the English was deepened, or confirmed, you might say, by watching all those kitchen sink dramas and films set in the North. Each of them served to underscore both the declinism and the modern sense of complete political inaction I've been talking about. At the end of Saturday night and Sunday morning, Arthur Seaton throws a stone into the new housing estate that he's going to live on and prepares for a life of complete subjugation to all the forces he hates. And in all the others, Billy Liar, This Sporting Life, A Taste of Honey, the main characters either have their freedom snipped or their imaginations curtailed, or else they run away to London, where inertia at least moves to a musical beat. But it was during this period that a crude sense of English nationalism prevailed, tied in its new form to racism and xenophobia. The Daily Mail, in its current scabrous form, was born out of a growing sense that England was and is under threat, not only from outsiders, but from below, from brown-skinned terrorists, yes, but also from scroungers and single mothers. Anyone who is in doubt about a loss of dignity and a murdering of self-respect in relation to the English working class need only join the terraces at an international football game. He or she, abroad especially, he or she might simply stop at a newsstand instead and buy a copy of the country's most popular serious newspaper. If the more famous views of Enoch Powell can be viewed as a distortion of English romantic nationalism, then that distortion is further distorted in today's Daily Mail, in a way that makes Powell now seem like an Elysian human lover in the tradition of Horace and Theocritus. But let's pause over this for a second, because it may tell us something about the snuffing of the radical spirit here. In other countries, Scotland, for handiness' sake, romantic nationalism, despite its many failings and fantasies, did manage to capture the essence of the common people. The Romantic tradition did that in Scotland. Robert Burns was in no way a simple nationalist and a wild patriot. He died in the employ of the British excise, don't forget. But his work, nevertheless, quite straightforwardly captures the essence of Scottish working folk on the brink of the Industrial Revolution. That's one of the things it does. If we look at Wordsworth, on the other hand, and his preface to the lyrical ballads, you see a similar ambition for the English to embed romantic nationalism in the experience of working life and natural things, and to raise a sense of that life's moral worth in the language and diction of the poems. But that impulse in Wordsworth barely survived the French Revolution. Perhaps Robert Burns died too early to turn conservative. But Wordsworth lived on, of course, losing faith in romantic nationalism as he'd formerly understood it. He later disavowed his own radicalism while seeming to disavow it for the English people as a whole. Quote, "For a multitude of causes," he wrote, "unknown to former times, are now acting with a combined force to blunt the discriminating powers of the mind and unfitting it for all voluntary exertion, to reduce it to a state of almost savage torpor in England." In a crucial intervention, Tom Nairn once wrote about the strange phenomenon of Enoch Powell. He quotes Powell writing in the Political Quarterly in 1953, "Conservatism is a settled view of the nature of human society in general and our own society in particular," he wrote, "which each succeeding generation does but re-express." But for Nairn, English nationalism has been travestied by Romanticism and confused by imperialism. but no account of its Calvary would be complete, which failed to perceive how it has been weighted down by conservatism. The English people are presently sunk in that conservatism. They have been for 30 years, such that younger generations in England now might be forgiven for believing that relentless, invisible acceptance is merely the natural way of life on these islands. That's what they do. That's what one does. When you speak to that generation, they say and they strongly believe that the only progress that has any meaning is the lonely kind that lies in themselves. That individualism I spoke about at the beginning, that I saw in the English family who once came to stay at our house that wonderful summer, is perhaps deeper in the English soul than anything else. It was noticed by de Tocqueville, who saw it as England's contribution to the shaping of the American mindset. His responses to England's lack of caste are recorded in Alan Macfarlane's book, The Origins of English Individualism. And I quote, de Tocqueville realised that an individualism which had sprung up in England was absent in France. He argued that our ancestors had not got the word individualism, are words which we have coined for our own use, because there was no individual who did not belong to a group. He warned against the effects of such a withdrawal into purely private interests. But do we see now a turn back towards a notion of the limits of individualism? Only yesterday, another Frenchman, Nicolas Sarkozy of all people, said he wants to refound capitalism on the basis of ethics and work. That came as a bit of a surprise. But is that not also what Obama promises? Is it not what Gordon Brown says to himself in the wee small hours that exist between his disgruntled political actions? Now that our decline is actually real, again, and we are back in recession, will the English working class let go of its long goodbyes and embrace a notion of collective responsibility? In England, is there somewhere in historical memory or in the public imagination that might seek to settle not in the routines of personal privation and individual destiny, but in a common experience of moral and economic opportunities alive in the world today? Orwell's view of his England relied on a notion of the innate self-respect of the English working class. He named all the diseases but one, for he believed at base in the transcendent ability of the English to be their gentle selves in the face of adversity. Perhaps he would have been disbelieving to see how the English poor have themselves become conjoined to their own adversity, distanced from their own collective powers, and distracted from their best traditions of non-acceptance, dreaming of goods and fame and new credit cards as the great and lasting values. Or maybe he always knew it and wondered why no one was saying. At the close of Homage to Catalonia, as he arrives back in England, we find this sentence: "And in England, southern England, probably the sleekest landscape in the world, it is difficult when you pass that way, especially when you are peacefully recovering from seasickness with the plush cushions of the boat train carriage under your bum, to believe that anything is really happening there." Nothing was really happening, except the quiet, invisible business of the people being walked over and saying nothing and thinking, that's just the way it is. But we are the people of England, wrote G.K. Chesterton, and we have not spoken yet. I was in Liverpool the other day, watching some of the American election coverage with an old fellow who happened to be sitting in the same bar. There was a black woman on TV and she was talking about the coming election. "We've waited for generations," she said, "and you know something? I think we'd forgotten how much power we actually had to make things better." The Liverpool gentleman drank his pint and looked over. "That's the ticket, isn't it?" he said. "That's the stuff." Thank you.